This run's not that long. It's only
No?
for about 2.5 weeks, I think.
That's not terrible. So, kind of, are you just sticking around the Southwest, or where are you headed to?
It's the West Coast. So we go all the way up to Vancouver and everything in between. A lot of cities we've been to before, like Seattle, Portland, San Francisco, and then some that we haven't, like Spokane, Washington. We're excited to go visit for the first time.
Well, so do you guys? I heard a couple of the tracks off the album that the record company sent over to me. They sound great.
Thanks.
What was, you mentioned you guys were going through some things. I'm assuming that came out in the writing of it. Do you want to talk kind of a little bit about how the writing of this came together?
Yeah, sure. About 1.5 years ago, I quit drinking. Well, I tried to quit drinking for the first time. I was obviously drank way too much and did a lot of drugs and stuff for a long time, and finally found a way to stop, and so you'll hear a lot of that on the record. But I quit drinking about 1.5 years ago, and we started writing the record like right after that, I think. So yeah, it was pretty cool to have something to put all my energy into, you know, because it was just a lot of new thoughts and new feelings coming up, you know, from taking the alcohol away, you know. It was just like there was this void, you know, and I was filling the void with ideas for this album. Yeah, I'm just really grateful to have had that opportunity to have the band to do that with.
Well, congratulations. And that's huge. I spent a couple of different periods in my life sober.
Oh, really?
Well, yeah, longest stretch was like 3 years, but
Dang, that's a long
yeah,
time.
I don't know. It's always it's not easy. So
Yeah.
and it definitely you find that, you know, the kind of it's a period of enforced reflection.
Yeah, for sure. Like lots of self-help books and just whatever I could find to fill that empty feeling, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just music's so powerful like that, you know. You never know who's possibly going through the same thing, and for them listening to the music is therapeutic, you know. So it works both ways.
So that's a heavy subject to deal with. You guys have a lot of energy in your music, though. So how did the musical composition of that how did you find yourselves marrying that subject matter to your sound?
I think that, you know, we have a very positive sound, I guess you would say, and I think that, you know, a lot of like what I was going through personally, like I didn't want to feel like I was in a dark place anymore. You know, I wanted to write music that lifted me up and that lifted other people up. So I think that's sort of how we married it.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think there's always an element of hope, even in the lyrics. You know, it's not all just like it's not dark in that way that it's you know, self-destructive. It's more of like I went through this.
Yeah. Now
I'm looking to get out of it, kind of thing, you know. And I guess you kind of follow that journey, and musically, I think that kind of contributes to that feeling, you know, of both sides of the story, you know.
So with you guys living in all different areas now, do you know, and that kind of span between albums, how do you sort of keep in touch, maintain relationships, keep like playing together and all that sort of thing?
It's actually worked in our benefit, I think, to be in different locations, honestly, because we'll fly out. For example, when we were writing this record, Seb and I flew out to Nashville to meet with Adam for about a week, and we were there to work. It was a really, really concentrated effort for that week, and we wrote Black Magic, Daylight, Carmen Sandiego, and other stuff too. And we didn't have to worry about, you know, running errands or going home and taking out our dogs or anything. We were there just to work.
Didn't have the distraction.
Yeah, and likewise when Adam comes
music.
out, you know, he's there, and it's really focused, and it's worked out really well, I think.
And what kind of recording process do you guys have? Do you guys all record like in studio together? Do you play your parts separately? I'm always kind of curious about that. Some bands, they won't play in the same room as each other. They contribute all their parts separately. And what is your sort of style with laying that down?
We do a lot. I guess we kind of do a lot of everything, but it's us in the room. This record in particular, we worked with a producer named Alan Blickley at his studio in Venice, and it was the first time that we've really worked on one body of work with one outside producer other than a band member, because we're all producers as well. So having somebody else steer the ship was really it was a unique experience for us as a band, and it was a really great experience. But yeah, sometimes also though we'll record parts on our own and then send them over, and fly them into the session. But for the most part, it is nice when we kind of can like hub in one place.
Yeah, we wrote the songs like Bill said, in Nashville, and some were written in LA, but it all ended up in one studio,
okay.
Which was pretty much, I think that was the biggest difference between these two albums, like from Waking Up the Giants and this one, is that we were we had access to one studio, and we also had a producer there to kind of like steer the ship. The first record we kind of produced on the road and in various studios in LA. So it was this time we really got to feel the studio instead of like getting an hour here, an hour there, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, and that really helped us. And Alan Blickley's studios had so many instruments to play around with. So it was just fun. It was a really fun process.
Yeah, how do you? What's your, as far as that goes? Do you, an individual, you might have different answers, but what is your favorite part of the process? Do you just love living like on the road and in the venues and playing live, or are you? The studio get your creative juices flowing, or at what point, the inception, the songs, what's the most exciting thing for you guys individually?
I mean, I think it's all of it. It's from the start of like the idea to putting it together musically, and then even the final touches of production and stuff like that. It can be so difficult because you kind of get lost because you've been listening to this song for so long, and you kind of have to like step away sometimes and then re-enter again and have new ears to it, but it's a fun process that as well. And then taking that to a live show and seeing people's reaction, and even like releasing stuff and seeing what people actually like take in and what they didn't take in, and like, oh, okay, that's interesting, I'm going to think about that next time. So it's a learning process, and it's not supposed to be perfected.
Right.
It's always something that you can. Yeah, it's not supposed to be perfected. It's just it's a moment, and you have to capture it. That's it.
Yeah, I think for me, it's all kind of one process. Like you couldn't do the live stuff without writing the songs and recording them, and it's all just different kind of art forms, I guess. But like taking it, I love writing songs, and I love writing songs with these guys and being a part of that creative process and recording it. But then it's funny because we see people streaming the songs, and you can see that they're listening to it, but there's nothing like seeing a couple people at your show like singing the lyrics with you for the first time of a new song. It's like that, for whatever reason, kind of like ties it up for me, and then it's like that's the end of the process, and it feels really good. I'm
sure, because then you feel like they've been living with it for a while, and it's become part of their lives.
Yeah,
and you're sharing this experience, and
right?
Yeah, I'm sure it's got to be.
For me, I love like just as a songwriter, I sort of see it as a math equation. I've never really been good at math, and it's the only form of math I feel like I'm sort of good at.
Sure.
But I just, it's so interesting because I feel like we take it really seriously, like, and then, and then sometimes we don't take it really seriously, and it's like sometimes the ones that we aren't really taking seriously are the ones that people really gravitate towards, and then other times it's the other way around. I don't know. Music is just special like that, I guess. But
with that period of time between albums, are you able to kind of, you write the songs, are you able to get a chance to sort of road test them before you take them into the studio? Is it something that is part of the process for you guys at all?
Yeah, I mean, we wrote pretty much 2 albums that, 2 albums worth of songs before we actually settled on this album, and it was a long process. So we definitely did that. We played shows and played new songs and tested them out, and it's scary and nerve-wracking, but it's like I think it's important because playing live, you listen to songs differently, than being in a studio and you're like kind of, like Adam was kind of saying, it's a math equation that we have to solve at that point. So taking it out of the classroom, then it becomes this different, it's more of an experience then.
Mm-hmm. Do you find that ends up becoming part of what will be the recording process then? Does it sort of shape and maybe edit a little bit? Okay, let's take out this part. Let's add this part now.
Yeah. I mean, on our first record, we were on the road pretty much all the time. So we had the opportunity to actually test them out. And a lot of the production kind of like decisions were made from live performances and being like, all right, that doesn't feel right, let's go back to the studio and fix it. So,
well, and that's, I mean, you hear bands all the time, how notoriously difficult the sophomore album is because you've had you had all of this time leading up to your first album to sort of figure out what the songs were, and the songs, and you get to take those into the studio, and that's like you've had this long dress rehearsal ramp up, and this is okay, we're gonna throw this out there, it's our best stuff, and then you got to follow it up with something. So that's kind of did that ever come into play at all with how you were any pressure for the second album at all?
I think this one feels like it's our first record. We we're trying to figure it out ourselves, and we started off kind of like getting thrown into a big, a crazy world. And I'm, on a personal aspect, I wasn't ready for it, So this time around, it was just like I had time to sit back and like, all right, what do I want to write? What kind of, what's the sound going to be? And like, not have other people, whisper stuff in my ears. It's us in the band that is going to decide what this album is going to sound like. And we matured as, individuals and have experienced stuff in between these records. So I think all that has, kind of led to the feeling of like, this is our first album. The next one might be the sophomore. I don't know. Or it's going to feel like that again, because you're experiencing stuff. You're living life. And, in the next record, I think is just going to be, as exciting for us to make. So that's my personal.
Yeah, I don't know if we felt pressure per se, but we just we felt pressure to make an album that we really could stand by and that we wanted to put out into the world and could be proud of. And it took us that long to do it, unfortunately. But we were working the whole time. We were going through a lot, and we were trying to figure it out. But yeah, like Seb said, everything happened for us in the beginning pretty quickly. And so, I don't know, it almost felt like we skipped a few steps, and then we had to sort of like fall back down over those steps that we skipped and then walk back through the door the right way or something. I don't know.
That's interesting. Now... So, you mentioned that you guys wrote enough songs to do 2 albums. Is the plan to, take this out and give it life and get traction with it, and then head back into the studio with the other songs, or will you guys write fresh songs for the next thing?
Probably write some fresh songs. Yeah. I mean, the songs that we didn't feel we wanted to include on this record, they're great songs, but it just wasn't quite the kind of vibe we were going for, the vision that we had. And yeah, maybe